Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome to Autonova. Remember to like and subscribe to support the journey. Now, let's dive into the next chapter of A Will Eternal. Sonic booms erupted out as the Chen clan diva patriarch led scores of black-armored nascent soul-level ghosts after Bai Xiaochun. Were it not for the fact that he feared the possibility that Bai Xiaochun might have more methods to endanger devas, the patriarch would have simply gone after him alone. However, he wasn't willing to gamble. The tragic fate of the Bai clan patriarch had played out right in front of him. If that patriarch had reacted only slightly slower, and had not taken advantage of the heat of the moment to speed back to the safety of his clan, then the Kai clan patriarch would definitely have caught him. Although the Kai clan patriarch would not have exterminated the other patriarch and his clan, he would definitely have forced the Bai clan patriarch to pay a heavy price to stay alive. Because of all that, the Chen clan patriarch didn't want to take any risks. Eyes flashing with cold light, he performed an incantation gesture, pushing the black-armored ghosts forward with greater speed. Bai Xiaochun's scalp was tingling with fear, and his heart was pounding. Looking over his shoulder, he saw the black-armored ghosts, and his nervousness mounted. The giant ghost king's face was also flickering with various emotions, and a sense of foreboding had gripped his heart. In his anxiety, he couldn't hold back from saying, "I told you to go back to the stone turtle, but no. No, you had to. Shut up." Bai Xiaochun yelled angrily, zigging and zagging to avoid the magical techniques and divine abilities that were being launched at him from behind. Then he pushed forward with another burst of speed, piercing through the air to appear in a nearby alley. After glancing around quickly, he unhesitatingly punched a hole in the wall next to him, revealing a courtyard beyond. Obviously, this was a residence belonging to some rich family. As soon as Bai Xiaochun stepped inside, screams rang out as the terrified servants scattered in every direction. Panting anxiously, Bai Xiaochun hurried to a pond in the corner of the courtyard, upon which he unleashed another punch. Immediately, the glow of teleportation rose up around him. Not too far away, the black-armored ghosts radiated a murderous air as they rumbled through the air. Then they sent a volley of divine abilities toward that very pond. The pond was completely leveled, sending water spraying everywhere. However, by that point, Bai Xiaochun was gone. About 9,000 meters away, in an abandoned building, more teleportation light filled the air as Bai Xiaochun and the giant ghost king materialized. Damn it, Bai Xiaochun thought, how come I haven't found the 50,000-kilometer one yet? Just when he was about to activate the formation to teleport away, a growl filled the air as the Chen clan diva patriarch teleported into the same building. When he realized moments ago that Bai Xiaochun was using his unknown method to teleport away, he split away from the black-armored ghosts to chase after him directly. He got a very bad feeling when he realized that Bai Xiaochun was using multiple teleportation formations. However, there was no time to ponder the situation at the moment. Murderous aura flaring, he quickly unleashed a palm strike. A huge illusory hand appeared and shot toward Bai Xiaochun, a powerful strike that instantly destroyed everything around them. Bai Xiaochun shrieked as the illusory hand closed in, but he had already activated the teleportation formation. Teleportation light rose up, and by the time the palm landed, reducing everything in the area to ash, Bai Xiaochun and the giant ghost king were gone. Where did these teleportation formations come from? The Chen clan patriarch thought, his expression grim. As a diva, he could easily lock the air down to nullify ordinary teleportations. And yet, he was incapable of nullifying these spell formations. "You're not getting away," he growled. Eyes flashing with anger, he waved his hand, causing an illusory screen to appear in front of him, which depicted a bird's-eye view of Giant Ghost City. As he peered at the picture, he noticed one spot where a bright light suddenly appeared. Snorting coldly, he stepped forward into the image. The spot where the light of teleportation had just risen up was a formerly bustling street. However, because of the current chaos in the city, it was an empty and cheerless place. As the teleportation light began to fade away, Bai Xiaochun and the giant ghost king appeared in front of one of the shops on the street. By this point, the giant ghost king really couldn't hold back from asking, How many teleportation formations do you have set up? He simply couldn't imagine how there could be so many teleportation formations set up in his own city, all without his knowledge. A lot, Bai Xiaochun responded quickly, his heart pounding. He was really starting to get worried. His answer was no exaggeration, and right now, he was relying on blind chance to find one particular formation among all of the hundreds that he knew about. Not daring to waste any time, he smacked the ground. Rumbling sounds could be heard as the teleportation formation activated, and Bai Xiaochun and the giant ghost king vanished. Even as they did, the air rippled, and the Chen clan patriarch emerged. Waving his hand, he destroyed the spell formation. However, an unsightly expression could be seen on his face, and the rage in his eyes grew deeper as he realized that he had been a moment too late. I really want to see how many times you can teleport before you run out of formations. With that, he vanished again. Enough time passed for an incense stick to burn, and booms filled numerous locations in Giant Ghost City. Bai Xiaochun was going all out, carrying the Giant Ghost King through one teleportation formation after another. Every time they vanished, the Chen clan's Diva Patriarch would appear and destroy the formation they had just used. If Bai Xiaochun went even a little bit slower, he would be in great danger, a fact that was pushing him into madness. At the same time, he did everything he could to be as efficient as possible in his actions. Despite that, he still had not found the teleportation formation that led 50,000 kilometers outside of the city. He felt like he was going crazy, but it was the same with the Chen clan patriarch. As far as the patriarch was concerned, this Bai Hao was like a rat who had countless tunnels dug through the city, through which he scurried in mystifying fashion. In one moment, he would be in the east, in the following moment, the north. The patriarch's anxiety mounted along with his anger, and at the same time, he couldn't stop wondering what his quarry was attempting to accomplish. It doesn't actually seem like he wants to escape. More like he's looking for something. Don't tell me that one of the formations is actually capable of long-range teleportation? That thought only made him more anxious. He quickly stepped forward, appearing in the most recent place where Bai Xiaochun and the Giant Ghost King had teleported through. He immediately destroyed the formation, then threw his head back and spoke in a voice so loud it filled the city. Bai Hao, why are you risking your life for the Giant Ghost King? There's no great enmity between you and our three great clans. Why are you interfering with us? Hand over the Giant Ghost King, Bai Hao. Fear not, I will personally guarantee your safety. I can also help resolve your issues with the Bai clan. We can just wipe the slate clean. Give us the Giant Ghost King, and you can just be on your way. In fact, we'll even pay you for him. As his words echoed through the city, Bai Xiaochun appeared in another teleportation formation. His hair was in disarray, and he looked quite bedraggled. The patriarch's words immediately left him quite shaken, and were actually quite enticing. As for the Giant Ghost King, his eyes widened, and the nervousness in his heart mounted. That was especially true when he realized that Bai Xiaochun seemed to be hesitating. Not good, he thought. This Bai Hao is vicious and merciless, and cares only about personal profit. If he feels threatened, then the little punk definitely won't think twice about handing me over. As the Giant Ghost King was anxiously trying to come up with an idea about what to do, Bai Xiaochun was licking his lips and thinking that the Chen clan patriarch's offer wasn't that bad. However, he had just made an agreement with the Giant Ghost King. He would definitely feel bad if he backed out now, and furthermore, it would be a big loss of face. Seems to me this Chen clan patriarch is starting to get nervous. All I have to do is find that one spell formation, and I can teleport 50,000 kilometers away. Considering the speed I'm capable of, I should be able to buy the time I need. As long as I hang in there, I'll profit handsomely. Eyes glittering, he decided that he would only give in if it was absolutely necessary. Most important of all was that he realized he couldn't trust either the three great clans or the Giant Ghost King. However, with the restrictive spell he had, his relationship with the Giant Ghost King was a bit more stable. Having reached this point in his train of thought, he decided that now would actually be the perfect time to win the Giant Ghost King over to his side. Therefore, as he continued to search for the teleportation formation, he put on a righteous demeanor and shouted, "Quit wasting your breath. I, Bai Hao, am a person who keeps his word. Furthermore, I repay all kindnesses shown me. The Giant Ghost King favored me with benevolence, and I promised to keep him safe. How could I possibly go back on my word? As long as I, Bai Hao, have strength left in my arms, I'll never let you people take the Giant Ghost King away from me." His words resonated out with the most righteous and noble of auras. As for the Giant Ghost King, he looked up at Bai Xiaochun with a bitter smile. Being the wily old fox that he was, there was no way he could miss the hidden implications in Bai Xiaochun's words. At the same time, though, he couldn't help but feel gratitude rising up in his heart. "Are you looking to die?" the Chen clan patriarch roared, his face twisting with vicious anger. The next moment, he appeared in the location Bai Xiaochun had just teleported away from, whereupon a thunderous boom could be heard as the entire area was destroyed. Then he vanished as he continued the chase. By this point, the Kai clan patriarch was rushing back to the city to join the Chen clan patriarch. Once he arrived, things would be even more difficult for Bai Xiaochun. As for the special formations that required special means to enter, although Bai Xiaochun could use the undying hex to get into them, that required extra time. The Chen clan patriarch was as quick as lightning in his pursuit. It was when Bai Xiaochun had just encountered the second of the unique, locked-down formations that the patriarch appeared up above. Bai Xiaochun hadn't even had a chance to activate the teleportation function. It was a relatively remote location in the west of the city, surrounded by quite a few ancient buildings and pagodas. In fact, many of them were as old as giant Ghost City itself. Not many soul cultivators lived in this area, making it a relatively quiet place. Because of the chaos in the city, the populace was shivering in fear, and at the moment, the only person visible in that entire part of the city was the Chen clan patriarch. "You're out of chances now, Bai Hao." Killing intent raging, the patriarch waved his hand in the direction of Bai Xiaochun and the giant ghost king. Rumbling sounds could be heard as a huge hand appeared up above. Everything began to shake wildly, and the buildings below began to collapse into rubble. Although Bai Xiaochun's face was ashen with fear, his eyes shone with determination. He knew that this was a critical juncture, and that he couldn't escape easily. Furthermore, if the teleportation formation was destroyed, he would have to run and find another one, a process that would be fraught with deadly peril. With such thoughts on his mind, he lifted the giant ghost king over his head to block the incoming palm attack, and then reached his left hand down toward the teleportation formation. It was a daring plan. Use the giant ghost king to absorb some of the force of the blow, and then redirect it to activate the spell formation. The giant ghost king was frustrated, but completely helpless. He knew that it was a critical moment, so all he could do was unleash what little of his cultivation base was possible, and bear the brunt of the blow. All of this takes a bit of time to describe, but actually took place in the time it takes a spark to fly off of a piece of flint. The Chen clan patriarch's palm slammed into the giant ghost king, who grunted and then coughed up a mouthful of blood, along with chunks of some internal organs. Clearly, he had been very seriously injured. Bai Xiaochun was also injured, and coughed up some blood. However, when his hand made contact with the teleportation formation, bright light shone up. "Teleport," he shouted. Rumbling echoed out, but no teleportation began. Instead, random pieces of wood suddenly began to fly into the air from within the rubble of the surrounding destroyed buildings. There were also assorted bits of metal, which whizzed through the air toward Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun's jaw dropped, and even the giant ghost king, who was still coughing up blood, stared in amazement. As for the Chen clan patriarch, an uneasy feeling rose up in the pit of his chest. Before any of them could react, cracking sounds filled the air as the pieces of wood and metal began to interlock and fit together almost like machinery. In the blink of an eye, a trap golem had formed right in front of Bai Xiaochun, dozens of meters tall. The trap golem had 3 heads, 6 arms, and a beast-like body with 4 legs. The surface of its body was speckled, and radiated an ancient air, as if it had existed since the most ancient of times. Almost as soon as it appeared, it threw its head back and howled. The sound of the howl seemed to ripple with the fluctuations of a diva, something that caused all powerful experts within Giant Ghost City to start in shock. The Chen clan patriarch's eyes went wide with disbelief as he gasped, "A diva-level trap golem. How is this possible?" The patriarch wasn't the only one to be stunned. The giant ghost king was completely flabbergasted. He had already been surprised at how many teleportation formations Bai Xiaochun had at his disposal, so the fact that a diva-level trap golem was in the city shocked him to the core. Although the trap golem was clearly not completely functional, and would obviously only last for a short time, it was still a diva-level trap golem. The secret magic used to create trap golems was a lost art in the wildlands, and yet, right here in Giant Ghost City, this Bai Hao had summoned one. The Giant Ghost King had absolutely no idea what other sorts of divine abilities this Bai Hao had at his disposal. The things he had done in the short half-year he had been in Giant Ghost City were shocking, to say the least. It all seemed completely unbelievable, especially since Giant Ghost City belonged to the Giant Ghost King, and yet even he had no idea how all of this had been set up. Then he thought about how he had fallen into Bai Hao's hands, and even resorted to giving him his own restrictive spell, and he suddenly realized that both he and everyone else had completely underestimated Bai Hao. However, a moment later, his eyes glittered as he came to the conclusion that the spell formations must not have been set up by Bai Hao. He was only using them. Regardless, the fact that he was making use of so many incredible resources made him a profound and accomplished schemer, and a truly consummate chosen. Shaken, the Giant Ghost King looked over at Bai Xiaochun, his eyes shining and a complicated sense of admiration beginning to grow in his heart. Bai Xiaochun blinked a few times in shock at the sight of the astonishing trap golem. Lu Shiyu had not been lying, his ancestor really had left a trap golem behind, hidden in one of the teleportation formations. Heart-pounding, he shouted, "Kill that man!" The trap golem's eyes began to shine with crimson light, and cracking sounds could be heard as it leapt into the air and shot toward the Chen clan patriarch. A boom rang out, and everything in the area trembled as they began to fight. As for Bai Xiaochun, he took a deep breath and then pushed his hand down onto the ground again, whereupon the ripples of a teleportation spread out, and he and the giant ghost king vanished. The Chen clan patriarch wanted to give chase, but the trap golem wouldn't let him. Enraged, he began to attack with full strength. As for the trap golem, it was an ancient thing, and although it was able to cause problems for the Diva Patriarch, it wouldn't be long before it simply began to fall apart. However, even as the Patriarch gained the upper hand, the trap golem's eyes suddenly flickered. At the same time, the Patriarch's face fell as he remembered the stories he had heard about trap golems, and how they all had a terrifying self-destruct function. Not good. He immediately prepared to back up, but before he could, a hidden spark inside the trap golem suddenly ignited. Within the blink of an eye, the entire trap golem was a mass of billowing flame, exploding out in all directions. The air twisted and distorted as a shockwave rolled through all of Giant Ghost City. Countless faces fell, and numerous cries of alarm could be heard. Meanwhile, Bai Xiaochun appeared in another location some distance off in the city. As he did, a wave of heat surged by, blowing his hair up behind him. Trap golem self-detonation, he gasped. At this point, the giant ghost king was still coughing up blood, and his face was slack. However, his eyes burned with fiery passion. As the flames faded away, a howl of rage could be heard, which came from none other than the Chen clan patriarch. His hair was in disarray, his robes were in tatters, and he was shaking visibly. Although he wasn't dead, the way he coughed up blood indicated that he had been seriously injured. At the same time, his hatred for Bai Xiaochun couldn't have been any greater. However, he didn't hesitate to make the same decision as the Bai clan patriarch. Roaring in rage, he became a bright beam of light that shot toward the Chen clan. Considering how little he trusted anyone, his main priority now was to heal his own injuries. When everyone in Giant Ghost City saw that, they gasped, completely shaken and terrified by Bai Hao. Heavens, the Bai clan patriarch tried to kill Bai Hao and got seriously injured. Now the same thing happened to the Chen clan patriarch. Just how many tricks does this Bai Hao have up his sleeve? He's terrifying, he's a diva killer. A complete animal. Whether it was the three great clans, the armies of the 6 heavenly marquises, or anyone else, nobody could remain unterrified by what they had seen. As for the forces of the heavenly marquises, they did not have any devas on their side, and thus, were incapable of actually chasing after Bai Xiaochun. At the moment though, they were actually glad about that. Meanwhile, Bai Xiaochun felt more pleased with himself than ever. "Did you see that?" he shouted loudly. "Don't provoke me. When I attack, I frighten even myself. I can use that same divine ability 99 more times if I feel like it." Everyone in the city who heard his words instantly grew hesitant. He had uttered similar words after injuring the Bai clan patriarch, and although few people had believed him, it still put them a bit on guard. But now, the Chen clan patriarch had suffered a similar fate. Everyone was completely shaken. As for the Kai clan patriarch, he had been in the middle of speeding toward Bai Xiaochun as quickly as possible, but was now hesitating. The fact that Bai Xiaochun had seriously injured the diva patriarchs of the other 2 clans caused fear to pulse in his heart. However, after a moment, his eyes glittered with cold light. There might be some danger involved, but it also means this is an opportunity for the Kai clan to rise to prominence. Neither the Bai clan nor the Chen clan can do anything at the moment. I'm the only one left who can kill the giant ghost king. If I do, who would dare to refuse to bow to me? The Kai clan would dominate everyone. We could unite Giant Ghost City and officially swear fealty to the Imperial City. I would be the new Giant Ghost King, and with the resources of a heavenly king at my disposal, I would almost certainly become a demigod. He couldn't help but pant in anticipation of that day. Chuckling evilly, he shot in the direction Bai Xiaochun's voice had just come from, simultaneously issuing orders to the Kai clan to converge on the same spot. Rumbling sounds once again filled Giant Ghost City as Bai Xiaochun began to teleport back and forth. However, the Kai clan patriarch was actually a bit faster than the Chen clan patriarch, and before Bai Xiaochun could even escape 10 times in a row, he caught up. When he did, he instantly destroyed the spell formation before Bai Xiaochun could activate it. Blood sprayed out of Bai Xiaochun's mouth as he turned and began to flee at top speed. As for the Kai clan patriarch, he chuckled coldly and began to chase after him, joined by numerous other members of the Kai clan. The clan chief and clan elders were there, ensuring that numerous beams of light were now converging on Bai Xiaochun. I'm finished. Kaput. There's definitely no hope now. Bai Xiaochun was on the verge of tears as he contemplated how the nearest teleportation formation was at least 3,000 meters away. Considering how close his pursuers were, there was no way he would make it there. That was especially true considering that the Kai clan patriarch was a diva. In fact, were it not for the fact that the patriarch was leery of approaching too closely and quickly, he would have already attacked Bai Xiaochun directly. I'm out of options, he thought. Giant Ghost King, you can't blame me for what happens next. The Kai clan wants you, and although I don't trust them to honor a trade, if I just throw you at them, then I might have a chance to escape. Although he didn't really want to do this, his poor little life was the most important thing, so he sighed and prepared to take action. However, that was when the voice of the little turtle was transmitted into his ears. Calm down, little punk. There's something you don't realize about this giant ghost king. He's a slippery character, I tell you. Lord Turtle was sure before that he was hiding something, and it took me a while to figure out what it was. HMMMPHH. At this point I can see it clearly. Listen, punk, the giant ghost king was lying. He doesn't need a month for his cultivation base to recover. He's fooled everyone. Lord Turtle's eagle eyes can tell that he only needs 5 days. Maybe even 3. HMPH. This guy really knows how to keep his secrets. If you abandon him to the 3 clans, he definitely has a way to last for 4 or 5 days in the hands of those devas. At that point, well, then things would get interesting. Shaken, Bai Xiaochun stole a glance at the giant ghost king. The man's face was ashen, and he wore a bitter, pained expression. Bai Xiaochun immediately hesitated. The little turtle seemed very confident in what he had just said, and it did all make sense. After all, the giant ghost king was a profound schemer. Finally, Bai Xiaochun chuckled. Quite the act you've pulled off, he thought. 5 days, huh? If I give up now, it would really be a big waste. A month was too long, but it might be possible to last for 4 or 5 days. In any case, the possible payoff in the end was worth the gamble. I guess I need to smooth things out with him. After looking up in thought for a moment, he cleared his throat inwardly, then plastered a vicious expression onto his face. Giant Ghost King, he shouted at the top of his lungs, his veins of steel pulsing. Coughing up another mouthful of blood, the giant Ghost King looked over at Bai Xiaochun and sighed. He's going to break his promise and hand me over to the 3 clans, isn't he? However, even as he thought this, Bai Xiaochun's voice rang out into the air. Giant Ghost King, you are a most honorable king, and a demigod as well. I, Bai Hao, am a nameless nobody, with a lowly core formation cultivation base. The gap between the two of us is like the gap between heaven and earth. It's impossible to even compare the two of us. In fact, were it not for the events playing out right now, the paths of our lives would likely never have crossed. Bai Xiaochun's voice contained a mixture of bitterness and profundity that left the giant ghost king feeling a bit stunned. Even the people from the Kai clan were now staring at him with serious looks on their faces. Voice hoarse, Bai Xiaochun began to speak as if he were recalling old times. In the beginning, I was a pawn, dragged unwillingly into your little game. I am aware that it was not an expression of kindness. However, I do know that it was the sowing of karma. Perhaps I removed you from the stone turtle out of resentment or greed. It's hard to determine if that was a mistake or not. However, I do know that it was the reaping of karma. Karma, a mysterious and indescribable thing. Let's forget about all of those things. Right now, there is one thing that Bai Hao will not do, and that is forget about his promise, or his agreement with you, Giant Ghost King. Bai Xiaochun's words caused the Giant Ghost King to shiver. Never could he have guessed that he would say things like this. He had anticipated being thrown over to the 3 clans. Instead, Bai Xiaochun went into a description of everything leading up to this point. Furthermore, his words were sincere in many ways. Even an old fox like the Giant Ghost King couldn't help but be a bit touched. After all, everything this Bai Hao had said was true. Originally speaking, the two of them would likely never have crossed paths. Furthermore, it was the Giant Ghost King himself who ended up dragging Bai Hao into the whole mess. I said that I would keep you safe for a month. I said that I wouldn't abandon you. And now, I say this. What does death count for? Giant Ghost King, please allow me to address you as old pal. Old pal. If we fail to pass through this tribulation alive, and end up in the Yellow Springs, then I'll still protect you for an entire month. Flicking his sleeve, he threw his head back and laughed uproariously. It was a laughter filled with both madness and obsession. His expression, his wording, and everything else immediately caused waves of shock to batter at the giant ghost king. It had been a long time since he felt moved in this way by anyone. Although he could also sense that something about the situation was a bit off, and seemed to go contrary to what he knew about this Bai Hao, in his current state of physical and emotional exhaustion, and after having experienced numerous betrayals and unexpected mishaps, he could do nothing else but accept Bai Xiaochun's sincerity. "Bai Hao," he said, his heart trembling and overflowing with emotion. There were actually many factors that had led to the current situation, and normally speaking, the ruthless giant ghost king would never allow such warm feelings to erupt inside of him. It was possible to see that from how he had kept even the loyal Duke Deathcrier in the dark about everything. In the giant ghost king's moment of profound emotion, the Kai clan's diva patriarch looked over with cold eyes and then growled, "Well, the both of you can just die together then." Then he waved his finger through the air. Rumbling sounds echoed out as an attack shot toward Bai Xiaochun and the giant ghost king. Bai Xiaochun quickly snapped open his eternal parasol to block the attack. However, he still ended up coughing up blood and staggering backward under the force of the blow, seriously injured. "Bai Hao," the giant ghost king shouted, stunned at the fact that he hadn't been thrown out in front by Bai Xiaochun to block the attack. "The reason I used you to defend myself earlier, old pal," Bai Xiaochun said grandly, "was not because I feared death. No, I simply wanted to save energy to get you out of this situation." Inwardly, of course, Bai Xiaochun was grumbling about how thoroughly realistic he was making his act seem. "Don't despair, old pal. I still have more tricks up my sleeve." Eyes flickering with sharp light, he looked back at the Kai clan cultivators only 300 meters behind him. Inside, he grumbled, "I'm really shedding some blood, sweat and tears to get this old fox to trust me." Gritting his teeth viciously, he waved his right hand, summoning a flying sword from his bag of holding, which glittered with the golden light of an 11-fold spirit enhancement. However, things weren't over yet. Even as he threw it out, he continued to extract magical items from his bag of holding. All of them were things he had acquired after arriving in the wildlands, and although some had 11-fold spirit enhancements, most had only 5 or 6-fold enhancements. However, there were dozens of them. Detonate. These were not the spirit-enhanced treasures he had personally made the time he went crazy and enhanced everything he owned. They were items he had acquired via interrogations performed as a Dark Inquisitor. Therefore, he didn't feel even the slightest twinge of pain in his heart as he threw them out and then detonated them, creating numerous fiery streaks of destruction. Bai Xiaochun had a bit of experience in detonating spirit-enhanced items, and knew that when they exploded, they released a huge amount of the energy of heaven and earth, all in one moment. However, despite what he had experienced in the past, he had never detonated dozens of them simultaneously. The explosive force they released left him completely shocked. He wasn't the only one. The members of the Kai clan, from the clan chief and clan elders down to the ordinary cultivators, were all completely stunned by the extravagant wastefulness of it all. After all, magical items with 6 or 7-fold spirit enhancements were like cherished treasures to any soul cultivator. As for items with 9 or 10-fold enhancements, they were even more rare. For example, Zhou Yixing, a member of an aristocratic necromancer clan that was also in the Great Circle of Core Formation, had only possessed one. It almost wasn't necessary to mention how people felt about items with 11 and 12-fold enhancements. The explosions they caused released such incredible force that all witnesses to the event were stunned. The ear-splitting explosion rocked heaven and earth, causing even the nascent soul cultivators to back up in fear and do everything in their power to defend themselves. The massive detonation caused all of the pursuing cultivators of the Kai clan to tumble backward, many of them coughing up blood. The giant ghost king also trembled as the words Bai Xiaochun had just spoken continued to ring in his ears. Considering everything he was seeing right now, it was obvious that this Bai Hao was really going to put everything on the line. Bai Xiaochun was panting as he borrowed some of the force of the explosion to shoot in the direction of the nearest spell formation, 3,000 meters away. Each step he took propelled him hundreds of meters, and within moments, he had reached the formation. However, that was when a cold snort echoed out. The explosion of the spirit-enhanced items had stopped the ordinary members of the Kai clan, but could do nothing to block the path of the patriarch. Originally, he had been worried about how Bai Xiaochun had injured the patriarchs of the Bai and Chen clans, and had kept his distance. But now, he didn't have the luxury of worrying so much. He had been prepared to perform a teleportation at any time, so he moved with lightning-like speed, piercing through the air and the force of the explosion to appear only about 30 meters away from Bai Xiaochun. Without any hesitation, he reached out with his right hand and unleashed the power of his Diva Realm cultivation base. "You're not going anywhere," he said, his eyes flickering with cold light. Instantly, the air in the area began to solidify, and an energy began to crush down onto Bai Xiaochun with enough force to shatter his bones. Furthermore, the energy of heaven and earth being released formed together in front of him into the shape of a pitch-black, nine-headed bird. All of the bird's eyes radiated murderous gleams, and the bird itself exuded a pressure of immense proportions. This nine-headed bird had been summoned by the Kai clan's Diva Patriarch, not by means of a magical technique, but rather, as an incarnation of the will of the heavens. Most other cultivators would have been completely shocked by what they were seeing, and their cultivation bases would have been crushed into a state of complete suppression. But Bai Xiaochun had 4 clones, and although they had been seriously injured and were currently holed up inside of him, they still gave him a huge boost in terms of both cultivation base and divine sense, pushing him far past the level of an ordinary core formation cultivator. Furthermore, his fleshly body was already in the great circle of the undying tendons. To top it all off, this was not his first time fighting a diva. He didn't even respect devas very much. Because of that, he was able to resist the diva pressure weighing down on him, and as the nine-headed bird shrieked and lunged toward him, he let out a powerful roar. There was no time for thought or planning, nor any time to try to put on an act. He instantly fell back, simultaneously waving his arm, which sent the several sets of leather armor he was wearing shooting toward the nine-headed bird. When he had first performed spirit enhancements on the armor, he had used special techniques to conceal the evidence of spirit enhancement. But the pressure of the diva nullified such effects, and the 4 golden designs on their surface now shone brightly. "Detonate," he shouted. Instantly, the suits of leather armor all exploded, releasing force that far surpassed the detonation of the dozens of items from moments ago. The Kai clan cultivators further back looked on with wide eyes, especially when they noticed the 4 golden designs on each of the suits of armor. And yet, even as feelings of madness rose up in their hearts, things continued. Bai Xiaochun's outer garment flew out, along with a hat and a few ordinary-looking bracelets. However, it was to the shock of everyone present that 4 golden designs now appeared on all of them. Each one flew out and then exploded, sending waves of intense force to meet the nine-headed bird. The bird was already fading away, but that was when Bai Xiaochun swung his left foot through the air, sending a shoe shooting forward, a shoe that had 4 golden designs on it. The extravagant wastage on display caused the Kai clan cultivators to cry out in shock. "This Bai Hao, he even has a 14-fold spirit enhancement on his shoe?" The giant ghost king was being held in Bai Xiaochun's right hand, so he had a first-hand view of everything, and the shock he felt now was so intense that his face was completely slack. The Kai clan patriarch's eyes went wide with disbelief, and yet, the killing intent within them only grew stronger as he pressed the attack. As for Bai Xiaochun, he simply continued to speed toward the teleportation portal, which was now only about 300 meters away. As the Kai clan patriarch closed in, Bai Xiaochun's eyes lit up with joy, and he threw his head back and laughed uproariously. "I've been waiting for you to get close, old man. You finally fell into my trap. Time for you to see my trump card." Continuing to laugh loudly, he swung his right leg through the air, causing his right shoe to fly out, which also had 4 golden design on it. "Detonate," he roared. The Kai clan patriarch's face fell. He had only just now decided to go all out, and yet, was still filled with apprehension regarding how Bai Xiaochun had seriously injured the other 2 patriarchs. As soon as he heard Bai Xiaochun's words, and saw the shoe flying toward him, he backed up, unwilling to take any risks. When the shoe exploded, it was a shocking sight, but nothing that could really hurt the Kai clan patriarch. Face turning very grim, he angrily shouted, "How dare you trick me, Bai Hao?" Roaring in rage, he stepped forward once again, but the slight delay which had just occurred had given Bai Xiaochun enough time to get within 30 meters of the teleportation formation. Just as he was about to step into it, the Kai clan patriarch howled and performed an incantation gesture with his right hand. Waving his finger at Bai Xiaochun, he caused the nine-headed bird to erupt into flames, and then accelerate rapidly. Bai Xiaochun's face fell, and he immediately prepared to defend himself. However, before anything else could happen, an afterimage appeared on the bird, and a second one flew out. One of the 9-headed birds bore down on Bai Xiaochun himself, and the other headed toward the spell formation. Not good. To Bai Xiaochun's shock, the Kai clan patriarch was not just attacking him, he was trying to destroy the teleportation formation as well. Rumbling sounds filled the air as the ruins surrounding the teleportation portal were completely destroyed by the 9-headed bird. Buildings collapsed for thousands of meters in all directions, and even the ground was crushed down by a full meter. Clearly, the Patriarch actually didn't know the specific location of the spell formation, and was just trying to destroy everything in the hopes that the teleportation formation would be destroyed as well. As for Bai Xiaochun, when the nine-headed bird slammed into him, blood sprayed out of his mouth, and he was sent tumbling backward until he managed to stop in place on the spot he knew to be the location of the teleportation formation. "Let's see how you try to get away this time," the Kai clan Patriarch said, a vicious grin spreading out on his face. However, even as it did, his eyes suddenly flickered with disbelief. The light of teleportation suddenly began to rise up right beneath Bai Xiaochun's feet. As it turned out, the teleportation formation hadn't been damaged at all. Furthermore, the light that was shining up now was different than the light from before. It was blinding, and the energy of the teleportation was clearly stronger. It only took a moment for anyone familiar with teleportation formations to realize that this was a long-range teleportation. This was the very spell formation created by Lu Shiyu's ancestor, which led to a spot 50,000 kilometers outside of the city. All of the other spell formations in the city had really been created to serve as distractions, with this formation being the true escape path. Furthermore, there was no way he would have his true escape path be the type that could easily be destroyed. The only thing the Diva Patriarch's attack had done was make it so that Bai Xiaochun didn't need to use his undying hex to enter the spell formation. Bai Xiaochun was very excited, and yet, within moments, his face turned ashen, and his heart began to pound. He had never dared to hope that this was the special spell formation that would lead 50,000 kilometers outside of the city. He had assumed it was just an ordinary spell formation that would put him a short distance away. However, he had come to the conclusion that, unless Lu Shiyu had been lying about that special formation, he would find it soon. After all, he had tried out quite a few other spell formations up to this point, nearly 70% of the total amount. That being the case, his chances of finding the long-range teleportation formation would only increase as time went on. And yet, this formation he was standing on was definitely the formation he had been looking for. Unfortunately, although it might seem as though this formation was the one that would save his life, Bai Xiaochun now realized that it was also a potentially deadly catastrophe. There was no time to ponder the situation. He quickly reached out with his right hand and then pushed it down toward the surface of the portal, causing the light to grow even more intense. A very serious look filled his eyes, a look that was tinged with madness. He knew that this moment was one of extreme danger. The Kai clan Patriarch had been holding back out of fear, keeping much of his cultivation base power in reserve in case he needed to defend against a deadly trump card. It was only because of that fact that Bai Xiaochun and the giant Ghost King had made it this far. But now, with the light of the teleportation formation rising up, the Kai clan Patriarch had no reason not to go all out. And that was exactly what happened. The anger in the Kai clan Patriarch's eyes faded, replaced by intense determination. Although he still felt hesitant because of the potential danger, he knew that he had to make a move now. Even if this Bai Hao did have one more trick up his sleeve, the consequences of letting him escape were too severe. Without the slightest hesitation, the Patriarch drew upon the full power of his cultivation base, causing the sky to vibrate and bolts of lightning to appear everywhere. Up above him in the air, a huge face appeared, which resembled his own face in every aspect. The Patriarch took a step forward, and as he planted his foot onto the ground, countless lightning bolts began to fall, making it look like a rain of gold was descending onto the earth. Bai Xiaochun was racked with anxiety. Never could he have imagined that he would find the special teleportation formation under these circumstances. His plan had been to put some distance between himself and his enemies when he activated it, which would have given him plenty of time to escape. But that was not how things were playing out. "I'm finished," he thought. "Kaput. It's all over. What do I do? What do I do? Even if I handed the giant Ghost King over now, this old Patriarch wouldn't let me off the hook." He wanted to cry, but no tears would come. It wasn't that he didn't consider simply throwing the giant Ghost King out of the teleportation portal. That might buy him some time, but in the end, the Kai clan definitely would not let him go free, nor would the Chen or Bai clans. Besides, after the giant Ghost King got his cultivation base back, then Bai Xiaochun knew that the only thing which would await him would be a grisly death. He had the restrictive spell, and the giant Ghost King's promise. However, Bai Xiaochun was certain that if he handed the giant Ghost King over, that would constitute breaking their agreement. Fudge, I guess I need to go for broke. In the blink of an eye, his eyes went completely bloodshot. He feared dying, but when death loomed, and he was out of options, he would be gripped by madness. During moments like that, he would not waver. He was not the type of person who liked to gamble, but in moments like this, gambling was the only option. He would gamble on being able to hold out until the teleportation formation was fully activated. His 4 clones were all weak and injured, but they appeared in the open now, surging with energy. For the first time, Bai Xiaochun released the giant Ghost King, setting him down onto the surface of the spell formation. Then he looked up, his eyes shining with madness as he prepared to face the Kai clan patriarch directly. "Prepare to die, Bai Hao," the patriarch said, his voice rumbling as if it were the will of the heavens. It even seemed to contain magical laws of heaven and earth, and was accompanied by countless bolts of lightning that, as they fell from the sky, formed together into an enormous battle axe. As the battle axe of lightning descended, the Kai clan patriarch leapt up into the sky and grabbed it, and then viciously swung it down toward Bai Xiaochun. Given the speed of his attack, there was no way that he wouldn't land the blow before the teleportation completed. At this moment, nobody was paying attention to the giant Ghost King, or the strange gleam in his eye. The truth was that he had been profoundly shaken by Bai Xiaochun's words and actions. He was a wily old fox, a ruthless and ambitious person who didn't trust anyone except his direct relatives. But the words Bai Xiaochun had spoken had caused a bit of warmth to appear in his heart. Of course, that warmth would only last for so long. Furthermore, Bai Xiaochun's previous actions, if analyzed carefully, did not really match up with his words. However, after the long-range teleportation portal appeared, he was doing something that would forever make up for any deficiencies in his previous actions. No matter what anyone said, as of this moment, Bai Xiaochun really was living up to his word, and was risking his life to keep the giant Ghost King safe. Most importantly, Bai Xiaochun had released the giant Ghost King in order to take action. The giant Ghost King was even more profoundly moved than he had been at the realization that Bai Xiaochun really wasn't planning to throw him over to his enemies. Although the king was a fundamentally ruthless individual, even he could not help but be shaken by what was happening. The events which had played out on this day were profound, to say the least. It was in this moment that the giant Ghost King took a deep breath, and at the same time, a shimmer of determination appeared in his eyes. As the Kai clan patriarch closed in, the giant Ghost King reached up and pushed his hand down onto his forehead. Rumbling sounds could be heard as his forehead opened up, and a golden drop of blood flew out and shot toward Bai Xiaochun. "Bai Hao, this is a drop of my soul blood. Absorb it, and you will have access to power equivalent to half a step into the demigod realm. Take my crimson spear, and attack with everything you've got." He sounded very weak as he spoke the words, and as the soul blood flew out of him, he seemed to age visibly, until he looked like little more than skin and bones. His aura was so weak that he was like a candle flickering in the wind, even his eyes clouded over. He only had 3 drops of soul blood in total, each of which was extremely important. Of course, anyone who absorbed one of those drops of soul blood would experience a huge boost to their cultivation base, except that boost would only last for a short time. However, it would give the recipient enlightenment regarding the natural laws of devas and the magical laws of demigods. At the moment, it was with complete and utter determination that the giant Ghost King sent his soul blood flying toward Bai Xiaochun. All of this takes a bit of time to describe, but actually happened in the time it takes a spark to fly off of a piece of flint. Bai Xiaochun's jaw dropped as the giant Ghost King's words entered his ears. And then, the drop of soul blood hit his chest and sank inside. A wave of heat exploded out inside of him, causing blue veins to bulge out on his face and neck. At the same time, a scream of intense pain erupted from his lips. Cracking sounds could be heard, and his entire body thrummed from the power of the soul blood. All of a sudden, monumental changes occurred to his cultivation base. His aura surged upward with indescribable speed, pushing him out of the gold core stage and into the early nascent soul stage. In the blink of an eye, he was in the Great Circle, and then beyond it. He was a diva, and yet, things weren't over yet. His aura was almost instantly in the Great Circle of the diva realm, only half a step from the demigod realm. He was half a step into the demigod realm. He threw his head back and let loose a protracted roar, his hair whipping around him. As of this moment, all of the giant Ghost King's accumulated knowledge of devas filled his mind, as well as much of his enlightenment regarding the demigod realm. Although that enlightenment wasn't complete, to Bai Xiaochun, it was profoundly precious. This was a type of good fortune that could be encountered by chance, but never searched for and found. It would make his future cultivation advance much more rapidly than before, and would help him avoid many mistakes. In fact, it was highly likely that it would enable him to surpass the giant Ghost King himself. Right now, anything and everything was possible. That was the power of soul blood. It could not truly push someone to new heights permanently, but would still be dramatically helpful in the long run. As for the Kai clan patriarch, his face fell, and he blurted, "Soul blood." Never could he have imagined that the selfish and callous giant ghost king would actually give out a drop of his soul blood. The patriarch's killing intent grew more intense, and he began to push his lightning axe down with even greater speed. The attack he was unleashing contained indescribable energy of heaven and earth, as if nature itself were furious, and intent on punishing all living beings. Lightning filled the sky as the enormous axe bore down on Bai Xiaochun. Thus, this episode comes to an end. Remember to like and comment so we can discuss the story together. Until we meet again in the next chapters.